On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1978. We're going to be taking a look at Richard Burton, and he's going to be performing Camelot. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So this performance tonight is about 5 minutes in length, so it is a bit of a long one, but I will be jumping into it. So if you want to watch it the whole way through without me interrupting, then there is a link in the description below. And a bit of a different one tonight, looking at actor extraordinaire Richard Burton, but let's get him up on screen and see how he gets on.
It's true. It's true. The Crown has made it clear. The climate must be perfect all the year. A law was made a distant moon ago here. July and August cannot be too hot. And there's a legal limit to the snow here in Camelot. The winter is forbidden till December and exits March the 2nd on the dot. By order, summer lingers through September in Camelot. Camelot, Camelot, I know it sounds a bit bizarre, but in Camelot, Camelot, that's how conditions are. The rain may never fall till after sundown. By 8 the morning fog must disappear. In short, there's simply not a more congenial spot for happily ever aftering than here in Camelot.
I'm just going to jump in here during this instrumental section where you can see that Richard is so engaging all the time, even though he's not doing anything. It's just literally him on stage with his hands in his pockets. But, I mean, there's such subtlety in the performance, and this is what, he was all about, being able to put on a show but engage you with whatever he was doing, even if it didn't seem to be anything. So he has that steely look in his eye, and he's just got one of those voices that certainly I recognise, even though he was way before my time. I think it's probably something to do with maybe Cleopatra being shown on TV, during holidays or Christmas or whenever they used to show it. Not that I've watched it, but I've seen bits of it, and he's got such a distinctive voice. And when I say that, I mean about a talking voice, just his tone and the way that it's so full and rich sounding. It's got such body just in his talking voice. And it's amazing to think that when he was a teenager at school, his kind of schoolmaster teacher was Philip Burton. So Philip Burton worked with Richard, and he was Richard Jenkins at that point, but Philip worked with Richard, and he was always on the lookout for students that might have potential, and he saw that in Richard. So they started working together, and Philip said about Richard that his voice wasn't very good to begin with, and he had to work really hard at singing, and you wouldn't be able to really tell that from this performance. Obviously he was a teenager at that point, so Richard knuckled down, and they even said about his speaking voice, how he had to just totally change everything that he did in order to attain the level that he did. So it really does speak to that fact of, I think, people having the ability to sing, but it just takes a hell of a lot of hard work. And some people just think, oh, I can't sing, I haven't got the natural ability. But more often than not, the people that have great voices and even, perform on stage and have done musical theatre, they might not have been able to sing when they were younger, and they just worked at it and practiced it in exactly the same way that people practice to play an instrument and become very good at that. So, mastering the voice is a lot more difficult in my opinion, because, like on guitar, you've got frets. As long as you push the string down, it's going to be in tune if you've tuned up the guitar. But that's not the case for vocal cords. They're not always going to be in tune, so you have to practice. And that is something that is really impressive about this performance when you look at it from a pitch perspective. But when you run your way through this performance, you'll see this kind of thing all the time. It's the E3 in this case being absolutely bang on. But what Richard does so well is blend this delivery of the vocal hitting these pitches, but also delivering it in such a way, as you can see here from his body language, that he's very matter of fact. He's telling you how it is in Camelot, and it doesn't really sound like a musical performance or really singing all that much, because he blends it so well with telling the story. The other thing you'll notice, as we scroll through this, are these jumps of an octave. We've gone from the C3 here up to the C4. So he's got that range, but the accuracy in order to do this, we're not singing in the top end of the male tenor range here. It's all in a comfortable place, but even from your talking voice, you still need to have that ability to go up an octave. And generally, when you're performing any song, especially in musical theatre, they are quite dramatic vocally with the melody that's being covered. It will rarely just be spanning half an octave. It'll be an octave or more, because of the drama of it being theatre. But have a little listen to this.
All the earth, a law was made a distant moon ago here.
And again, when I'm talking about vocal technique, I mean, there from the C3 to the C4, we've got that na na ah kind of going up there, tonally consistent, of course, but listen to the vibrato as well. That nice even wobble again. This is all attained through practice, especially because we know that Richard wasn't a natural singer to begin with.
A law was made a distant moon ago here. July and August cannot be too hot.
So even that, na 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 na, definite pitch, melody, but accuracy going on. Have a listen to this as well, because it'll show the blending of talking and singing, because this is really an art form in itself as well.
In Camelot, I know it sounds a bit bizarre.
That kind of thing, because we have na 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 na, we have an intro to melody, and Richard isn't going na 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 na. He's not hitting notes there. He goes na 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 na, and he kind of goes down into talking. Have a listen again.
Camelot, I know it sounds a bit bizarre.
I know it sounds a bit bizarre, and kind of takes it into talking. So this is what I mean about blending talking and singing. Like I said, it is an art in itself. In order to do this, to not go na 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 and cut off too quickly into a talking voice from the singing, blending one into the next is great. And this is the kind of thing that obviously keeps you engaged in the story, because it doesn't detract from it or detach from the telling of the story. You're just listening to a guy telling a story, and then obviously when we're analysing it, you realise where the notes are and where the talking is, but it's just rolling that all up into a story. That's the art form.
Camelot, I know it gives a person pause.
Another great example there. That A3 was absolutely bang on, and then he slides out of that with the expression at the end of that line. And a lot of this delivery and authenticity of the story and the character here in the performance is from Richard's overall tone, his sound, his resonance, the way that he's got an authoritarian sound to his voice, because he's got that he's accessing, you know, his chest voice. He's putting a lot of body in the sound. If he was going Camelot, Camelot, and doing it like that, it wouldn't have the same effect. The character would totally change. So this is another thing about vocal performances in vocal theatre, in musical theatre, but vocals just across the board in any kind of entertainment where they're giving you somebody's character, somebody's personality, whether it be TV or film. The voice has to suit that character, and you've got to have the ability to change your voice for the character that you might be playing. And I mean, this is obviously Richard, just a top level actor. This is exactly where it needs to be vocally, but tonally. Let's roll into that as well. The enunciation and how clear these words are when he's singing. So it sounds like a talking voice because he's not applying vocal techniques to his voice. We're not going super high here, so it means that he doesn't have to start changing the sound of his vowels, but he's very abrupt with his enunciation, and, you know, he's giving you that clear English, you know, the pronunciation of every single word and the enunciation just being so pristine.
In short, there's simply not.
In short, there's simply not. You know, it's na 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 na. And if you were kind of singing this, you go, in short, there's simply not. It would be so easy. I say it would be so easy. A lot of people do that where they don't enunciate. So you kind of lose what they were saying, and you can't afford to do that if you're telling a story. You can't afford for the audience to not know what you're talking about, and they totally miss what the story is. But listen to this as we go through to the language side of it, not even hitting the pitches, but again, I'll mention something about that in a second.
A more congenial spot.
A more congenial spot. Congenial. Try and roll that in with singing. Na 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 na. A more congenial spot. There's a congenial. The nial is difficult. A more congenial spot. Because you've got to decide where you change pitch with the word. Congenial. You have to do a little slide. So all of these tiny details, and when we take it back, having a look at the pitch monitoring software, you can see how accurate he is. Because, you know, it just seems really easy.
In short, there's simply not a more congenial spot.
I mean, that is so precise there. More congenial spot, congenial spot. He actually goes down on on the N of Neil, but this is how he keeps the pronunciation and the enunciation so pristine and pairs it with pitch changes. So I know that we're looking at it in a lot of detail here, but the more you look at it, the more impressive it is, because when you're watching this without analysing it, it's just great. You're engaged in the story, but then when you look at it to see what he's doing with his voice and how he's making it engaging by blending all of these things together.
Than herein Camelot.
And again, look at this. I know that he's sharp of the C4, but he's got that vibrato in there as well, and then comes down to the E3 and bang on. But in terms of those intervals, the way that he's gone sharp with the C4 and he's maintained that, so even if he's gone na, he's gone up to that same place so that it is consistent. If he went and then didn't go up high, didn't keep the same interval, you would notice straight away. And you don't notice it because this is so consistent. It doesn't matter if you're not directly over these lines of 440 hertz tuning, equal temperament. If you keep your intervals consistent, the voice is consistent. Pitch-wise, you can't hear the difference between these two notes. Listen to that, that expressive slide that he has down.
Than herein Camelot. Camelot.
I mean, it's so quick. Camelot. You know, just like that. You can see it on the screen here. It says fraction of a second. But that's the kind of accuracy we're talking about. That in a fraction of a second, he's gone down to the E3. And you can see, you know, how far that is. You know, it's not as if he's just going down a semitone.
Each evening from December to December, before you drift to sleep upon your cot.
Just to mention here, this is the voice that somehow I know. I know it from either my childhood or it must have been from movies that I might not have been watching, but you just know this voice. And listen to just the way that he talks. Like I said, the enunciation, but the body in his sound. You know, he's not using a light sound here. And something that I mentioned in other videos about talking in vocal fry, he's not doing that. He's not, you know, being really light with it, like lots of people do talk like that, where they go, "Hi, how are you doing?" Yeah, and they use that kind of croaky sounding voice, but that's called vocal fry as a technique singing wise. But listen to the way that Richard does it.
Think back on all the tales that you remember.
Think back on all. Yeah, there's so much vocal cord connection. Think back, and he's got such resonance to his talking voice. It is really a voice that you kind of, you know, sit back and take attention of, because it demands attention because of how stern it sounds.
Of Camelot.
And then just quickly, Camelot, you know, goes into singing.
Ask every person if he's heard the story, and tell it strong and clear if he has not, that once there was a fleeting wisp of glory called Camelot.
I mean, there's no way you cannot make out every single word, especially with this kind of performance. When we're talking about musical theatre, you had to project your voice, you had to connect your vocal cords, you had to apply compression, you had to do so much. Just to mention quickly as well that I have EQ'd the original audio from this. Obviously I've isolated the vocal as well, so what we're hearing is a combination of the instrumentation and Richard's vocal. But on the original there is some kind of hissing or something going off in the right channel of that original audio, which is a bit annoying. So I have EQ'd that out of this final performance so that we didn't have that kind of ringing along all the time. When you roll into it, that this is a voice that's been worked at and it's just been perfected, and not only a voice for singing but a voice for talking as well. I mean, Richard really shows you how it is done. But thank you guys for requesting this particular video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!